Yep, guess we're recording. I've got Eclipse in here. I guess you can't see her on the camera. You can see her jumping up on my back here. This is just very beginning, and the reason for this video is people dealing with a really high drive puppy, and they just can't deal with this right here. Puppy jumping up on them, wanting attention, really high drive. They're screaming at it, yelling at it, smacking it, knocking it down, completely ruining its temperament. All the things I tell everybody not to do to their puppies. So just a real quick video of the very beginning. I have had her out a couple of days, building drive, flirt pole, different things, beginning bite work, but I want to very beginning in the obedience and things so people can see the progression from a complete wild puppy to what she'll be later on, and there'll be other videos later on. As you can see, she is wound up, tons of drive. She really loves the bill jack that's in my treat bag here. And this is another thing, people just really don't know how to deal with the dog when it's trying to get to the food, jumping up on you and so forth. So, here we go. That's it. Now, I have to keep closing this bag just in case she gets her head in it and of course starts eating the food in the bag. And we don't want her eating the food in the bag. Then she's going to be going for the bag all the time rather than the food in the hand. Come on. Eclipse. There you go. Come on. Sit. Sit. And you've seen her wander off towards the corner back here, and you're probably going to see her do this quite a bit in these videos. This is the reason for a training room or a fenced-in area, contained area. Yeah, there we just dropped some on the floor where the bag's so full. If she runs off, I'll bend down to pick that up. If not, she'll clean it up off the floor here real quick. But as I was saying, here, come on. That's it. She's going to stay engaged now rather than running off. Just realizing there's more food in that hand, and trying to get the food back in the hand quick enough is fun also. There. Sit. Eclipse. Yep, she found the food on the floor. It's best if she's not picking that up. Normally I'd reach down and try to scoop it up real quick to keep her from eating it, because we want all of the food coming from the hand rather than from the floor. Sit. Okay, back to what I was saying. When she's wandering off and things like that, this is the reason for having a training room, and it don't have to be this big. It can be half this big. It can be smaller. It could be a fenced-in area like we was using down in Louisiana where it was so hot, but it's better if it has walls rather than fence. where the dog or puppy can see outside and get distracted by stuff outside. I have a couple of things sitting over in the corner off of the camera. I've got some boxes that actually plastic tubs that we used a while back for explosive detection. But really, there shouldn't be anything in here to distract the dog. So let that happen. Drop a piece, we'll pick it up rather than, I want it all to come from the hand as much as possible. We don't want self-rewarding on the ground. We'll do that when we get into tracking. But as I was saying there, which is really fun trying to talk and work with a pup with this much drive at the same time. She can run off, she's contained in here. She's not going to run off and go play with the other dogs. She's not going to run off and chase after a bird or a leaf blowing by, or even get distracted by cars going by, because she's contained in this area. And if she wanders off, it's just me and her in here, so she has to come back. When she doesn't come back to me, she's lost interest, she's no longer hungry. At that point, we're done for the day. Right now, this is actually attached onto the side of my racing pigeon loft, and there's quite a bit of feathers comes through in the one corner. You've probably seen it in one of my other videos, and she's kind of checking all that out now. She also found the rock to carry around. We're getting this one out of here. Here, Eclipse. Here, here. Here. And that was just keeping her engaged, or getting her re-engaged. Here. Here. She's kind of focusing. I've got kind of rocks and gravel on the ground in here, as well as I've got these old pieces of plywood over the top of the gravel rather than poured concrete. And this is so if we drop a piece of food, it's not mixed in with the gravel. It's more of a smooth surface. I don't know about other states, but here in Ohio, if you've got concrete poured, your property taxes double because of the concrete. Other states that might be different, it might be the same, but there's no sense in paying double on taxes for something as simple as what we're using this for. Eclipse. That one was for coming to her name. Again, I'm not getting this back in my hand quick enough because I'm using the frozen bill jack. And Eclipse. Here. Here. And apparently she's dropping a few pieces and going around picking them back up. Thing about frozen bill jack, for anybody who's never seen this stuff before, it's really soft, and you thaw it out, and when you squeeze it together, it can make any size ball you want out of it. Of course, that was a pretty good sized bite. She'll have to chew on that one for a minute, but I wanted to get it up in front of the camera so people could kind of see what this frozen bilgejack is if they've never dealt with it. It's really great for starting pups, starting dogs. Eventually, we do go to just the dog food, dry dog food. Nothing special. We don't use treats. It's everything that they eat comes directly out of my hand. You coughed that one back up. You swallowed too quick, girl. Here. But if they're not getting fed out of a bowl, not getting fed off of the ground, everything's coming from the hand, they're learning to work for it. They have to do whatever it is that you're teaching them to do in order to get the food. If you're feeding your dog out of a bowl, don't think this type of training is going to work too well for you. If the dog's not hungry, it's not interested, it's not going to stay engaged. This is also, excuse me, it's a really great way to, excuse me, I think one of those pigeon feathers went in my throat. Come on, we're not rewarding you up here. Let's go, sit. It's a really great way to bond with the dog, bond with the pup, teach it to stay engaged with you. You can see she's back to jumping up, being little wild things, and she kind of checked everything out that she wanted to check out in here, and we just absolutely do not reward that. The best thing to do is just ignore the heck out of it, and now she's in a sit, she gets rewarded. And of course, that is a little more detail than I've gave people in my past videos. But we're going to start going into a little more detail. This is how you teach the puppy to quit biting and chewing on you also. Obviously she's not chewing my legs up, ripping on my pants legs or shoes or shoestrings or whatever. But when the pup learns some obedience and learns it's getting rewarded for the proper behavior rather than for bad behavior, they start to settle down quite a bit. Dropped that one a little bit ago. And she's starting to come into positions already. It does take quite a bit of time to teach these positions to them. She's picking this sit up pretty quick. I'm not giving her commands on every position at this point in time, mostly because I'm talking to this camera sitting on the wall here. Yeah, I guess my pants legs started to smell good now. But I would be giving her a command with each position if I wasn't speaking to this video right now. So it starts to imprint the command with the position and the behavior and the reward. And that's the only way the dog is really going to learn. In the beginning, you don't have to give the command. You can just teach them the positions, the different positions, reward the different positions, and they'll start to pick up the different positions, and then you can add the words in. You can see she was off back over there in the corner playing around. She's came back up. If we wasn't in a room, if we was out in the front yard at this point, it's hard to say where she would be at. She would probably be running around with the other dogs, going around visiting them, and that's usually where the trainer is screaming, yelling, get back here. They can't get the dog back, they can't get it focused. because the dog it's interested in doing other things. The room keeps them in here. I mean, she's stuck here until we're done. Good girl. She gave me that little nudge. And as long as she's in this position right now, we're gonna keep rewarding her as long as she's in that position. Again, we're ignoring this jumping up. No reason to correct her, no reason to yell at her, no reason to get a spray bottle or a rolled up newspaper or a fly swatter or all those other crazy things that the fur baby mommies do. All that does is ruins the temperament of your puppy. When you have a puppy that is scared because you are holding a spray bottle or you are holding a newspaper or because you are raising your voice or a fly swatter or anything else, the only thing you did was teach your puppy first that you are an asshole, and two, to be afraid of you. You're just ruining the puppy's temperament. Here. What happens down the road when people do that and they've been screaming and yelling at their puppy, one of these days they maybe get into a confrontation, somebody breaks in the house, walking the road dog down the street, somebody comes up and there's a confrontation, and this is when they need the dog to protect. But a normal confrontation involves yelling. So as soon as you start screaming and yelling at the person, or they start screaming and yelling at you, the puppy, or this time full-grown dog, sticks its tail between its legs and goes behind you and hides or runs off. And right away, the first thing that happens is the breeder gets blamed. It wasn't the breeder, it wasn't bad genetics, it was every time you raised your voice, the puppy was in trouble or the dog was in trouble. So he doesn't know, or she doesn't know, that you are yelling at this person that's trying to rob you or wanting to beat you or whatever else that person may be wanting to do. All he or she thinks is they must be in trouble because you're yelling. Had nothing to do with genetics, had nothing to do with breeding, had everything to do with how you raised your puppy. Another thing that I run into with training dogs that's been raised by other people is they want to teach the puppy not to snatch things from their hands. So they do whatever it is that they do to teach the pup not to snatch things from their hands. So then we're trying to teach the dog to bite a piece of equipment, a bite sleeve on our arm, or a tug in our hands, or a ball that's being held in our hands, and the dog is afraid to engage because every time it has tried to grab something from the owner's hands, it's got in trouble. It may have got smacked in the nose, flipped in the nose, yelled at. Hard to say the things that different pet people do with their pets, and they think they're training. All they're doing is making the pup scared. They're running the temperament. You can see she's settling down already. Just as soon as I open my mouth, huh? You make a liar out of me. But she is starting to settle down quite a bit. She's wanting attention. I won't fault the dog for jumping. I mean, she's settled down from when we first came in, when I first got her out. when you know, we first came in. She was pretty wound up, really jumping a lot before I even got the camera turned on. Real quick, while I'm on here, while I'm at it, might as well go ahead and anybody that's watched the video this far, tell you some of the things I tell all of my customers when they pick up the puppies to keep them from ruining their puppy. Once you run the puppy, run its temperament, there's no fixing it. You can attempt to build the dog back up, but you will never bring it back to its full potential, what it would have been before you did the damage. Running the temperament on a puppy or a dog is about like taking a '69 Corvette, knocking holes in it, and going out with fiberglass body putty, patching the holes, sanding them down, making them all smooth again. And maybe we shouldn't use the Corvette because the Corvette's fiberglass to begin with. We'll say a 1979 Camaro. It's got a metal body. Knocking the dents in it, sanding it down, nice shiny new paint job, clear coat, everything else. It looks as good as new. Until the first little fender bender you get into. First little fender bender you get into, every last bit of that body putty pops out. And it's the same thing with your dog. So when my customers are picking their puppies up, I always tell them, puppy does absolutely no wrong. It's a puppy. I don't like the term fur baby, but sometimes I have to have people kind of think of them as a baby, because they technically are a baby, a puppy, until after they are a year old. Absolutely no corrections at all on a puppy until after they are a year old. Some cases 14 months old, some cases 16 or 18 months old. It really depends on the dog. Here. But no corrections means absolutely no screaming at it, no yelling at it, no smacking it, no flipping it in the nose, no getting it after with a sprayed up spray bottle, no rolled up newspaper, no fly swatter. Puppy does absolutely no wrong. If puppy chews up your shoes or your wife's $10,000 purse, if she's got a $10,000 purse, it should not be down where the puppy can get a hold of it. So if it's chewing on your shoes, your cord, whatever, the remote control, it's your fault for leaving it where the puppy can get it. Puppies will be puppies. They do have a mind of their own. It looks like we're about done training here. But all that will do is ruin your puppy's temperament and make a scared little chicken shit dog out of it. And like I said before, the scenario of somebody comes and breaks into your house, what's the very first thing that you do? You start screaming and yelling at them. What the hell are you doing in my house? What are you doing in here? Get out of my house. I'm calling the police. And again, the dog is going to tuck tail and run the other way because this is what you've taught it. Every time you've raised your voice in the past, that dog or that puppy has been in trouble. So now it does not realize that you're yelling at this person and they're supposed to be protecting the house. He or she thinks that you're yelling at them and they are tucking tail and running the other way. Has nothing to do with breeding or genetics at this point. Now, there are a lot of dogs out there with really poor genetics, even a lot of imported dogs with really poor genetics. A lot of the sport lines, a lot of the show lines, people are breeding a lot of dogs anymore that don't have a true natural protection to them. If the dog doesn't have a natural protection of some sort, it will not be bred here on my place. That is a definite has to have in order to breed on my place. Kind of lost track of where I was there, but absolutely no screaming, yelling, hollering in any way at the puppy. You've got to teach the puppy what you expect out of it before you start correcting it. So we'll use the food, we'll teach the sit, we'll teach the foos, we'll teach the plots, we'll teach the tracking, we'll teach the blinds, even with the food. I don't show everybody how to do that, but we teach the blinds with the food. Eventually we go to a ball reward or a tug reward, but we don't put a leash on a puppy or a dog and start yanking saying sit, or yanking saying foos and walking with the puppy, or yanking down and saying plots. That's not training. That is nothing more than dominating your puppy, dominating your dog. That's not training. There's a lot of people out there that's their idea of training. They will stick a prong collar on your puppy and the e-collar, and they will shock it, and they will pull it, and they will yank it. When they get done, you will have very fast results. The puppy will sit, it will down, it will stay, but you will have a very weak nerve dominated puppy that is completely unsure of itself and with a completely ruined temperament. So be careful of that type of training. People who can give you an exact how long it's going to take to train this or how long it's going to take to train that. I can't tell you how long it's going to take to train Eclipse over here. We're getting her started for a month. All 3 phases of IGP. She'll be getting obedience, tracking, bite work. We'll start all 3, and they'll be age appropriate. Age appropriate is another thing I talk about a lot of people with on training. Certain things you just don't do with puppies, and it's better to start them at a really young age because early imprinting is really important. Getting these positions and things into a puppy's head is so much easier than it is getting it into an adult dog's head. An adult dog has lived its whole life with no structure, no obedience whatsoever. So when it comes to teaching it to do things, when it don't want to do it, it has its own ideas. So early imprinting, age appropriate training. We like to bring protection dogs, if they're for protection, back 3 different times. Once as a puppy, once as about a teenager. What we would consider a teenager is around 7, 8, 9 months old, and we'd like to see them coming back again around, depending on the dog, and also depending on male or female also makes a difference. Usually around a year old, 14 months old, and that's when you start polishing them up, finishing them off. As a protection dog, IGP dog takes daily training, at least a few days a week for life in order to get them there and get them where you really want them to be. Looks like Eclipse has really lost interest in her food. She must be done. My bag is pretty empty. She's really slowed down. It's more me talking on this video than anything. A couple of things that I wanted to get out there in front of people, make them think about, really get people to understand. You don't take a puppy, start screaming, yelling at it, yanking on a leash, collar. As you can see when she comes back in front of the video here, she's never had a collar on in her life. She's never had a leash on in her life. I kind of laugh when I hear people say that they went to off-leash training, meaning that they finally got to the point that they're training the dog off leash. And the reason I laugh about that is because I'm always thinking to myself, when did you go to on leash training? You know, we start off leash, we work off leash. The only time that we go to on leash is when we are going to start putting corrections on. And what she got a hold of there. Piece of rusted metal that must have came out of the gravel in here. This is creek gravel underneath of this, so it's hard to say what was in it. Yeah, we got you wound up again, didn't we, little girl? Anyhow, looks like it's about time to shut this off. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a little bit. Really love it if people would share this video around, share it on Facebook groups, whatever. A lot of pet owners, I think, could really learn quite a bit, you know, from what I had to say here. And especially about not correcting your puppy, not ruining your puppy's temperament. Training, every last bite of food comes out of my hand. If I'm training for a month, every last bite of food comes out of my hand for a month. Nothing out of a bowl. The only thing that don't come out of my hand is if we accidentally drop something on the ground and she picks it up, or if we are tracking, the food is in the track on the ground. But every last bit of food is in training. Yep, swallowed that one quick, didn't you? I got a little bit of hard pieces mixed in the bottom here that was still in my bag. She didn't quite swallow it. Or didn't quite chew it up. She just swallowed and coughed it back up. She's chewed it up, no big deal. But like I was saying, absolutely nothing off of the ground, nothing out of a food pan. We don't use treats, we use dog food. Every bit of the food that they are eating is during training from the hand. It is training every day. It's not going to a club or going to a trainer once a week for a session and thinking that you're going to teach the puppy anything in that session. Once a week, once every other week. It's every single day. Anyhow, I'm gonna cut this video off here, deal with her. I've got 3 more puppies to work with after her, smaller puppies, and I've got to get back at it. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you watched it this far, I'm guessing you did. Have a nice day.